welcome to the training webinar for this week. And this week we're going to be talking about system variables, specifically system variable parameters. So I'm not sure how long I can drag this one out. It may be one of the shorter ones, but I've got a form where I've built some system variables and I've got some controls, and we're going to see some various things that you can do with system variables off of the parameter side. So let me share my screen and we'll just get started. Now, normally, whenever we talk about system variables, in the past, I've talked about either specific types of, well, I've talked about system variables in general and what the syntax is and whatnot. And then I've talked about specific system variables and specific use cases of system variables. Today, we're going to pull back out a little bit from that specificity. We're not going to worry about talking about how system variables are constructed. We're going to really concentrate solely on the parameters that are available for your use. So basically taking a system variable and kind of extending it through modifiers and formatters to see how different system variables work. And I've broken them down into the different variable types. Now, one that I didn't cover here are user system variables, which I probably should have, but I've got several here. So we'll go through these, and if we have some time later, we'll talk about some of the user system variables and what our uses are for them. One of the most useful formatters or modifiers to a system variable are the pre and post modifiers. And what the pre and post modifiers do is they enable you to specify some, in the case of pre, text that will appear before the system variable is rendered, and post, text that will appear after it has rendered. So in this case, what I want to show before the activity running name system variable is I want to show in boldface the running activity : space, and then after the system variable appears, I just want to throw in a space, a dash, a space. And then I have the task instruction system variable. It has a pre that says instructions, : space, and there's also HTML here to highlight them. Now, interestingly, even though I've written the HTML out in longhand here, you don't have to do that. You could actually go in and just boldface the text in the online form designer, and that will work because even though you don't see it in the page HTML, it will actually place the strong tags on the running activity on the text here, rather than having to type it out. I have typed it out manually so that you can see what the tag is to make HTML text bold-faced, but you can do it either way. Either way, it'll work because when we go into the source view, and let's see, it's way up here on the activity running name. What happens is this gets converted to HTML. So that less than and greater than sign actually gets converted to HTML on the fly whenever the page is rendered. It's HTML safe in editing mode. And so most of the time, if you try to throw HTML code in and stuff like that, what you will see is if you go and look at the source code, that it will make it safe for submission. So it will save it like the pointy brackets, whatever they're called, the left and right arrows. Actually, they're called less than and greater than. That is the HTML representation. Actually, I should probably include the colon there, or semicolon. That's the HTML representation. But if you just manually highlight this in the form designer and boldface it, it'll work too. In any event, let's run the form, or save and run the form, I guess, in this case, although the form has already been saved. There needs to be just a run button instead of a save and run button. But we have this form. We have not submitted it yet. So obviously there is nothing to show here below the generic text. So we'll just go ahead and submit our form. I have an activity that is assigned to me. It's activity 1. It's got some instructions in it. And as you can see up at the very top, this is how the system variables now display. So uh, this is my actual system variable right there. Well, I am not having a good time highlighting stuff today. So there's my system variable right there. It's activity 1. Here is my task instruction system variable. All this other text is the pre and post text there for my running activity system variable. And then here is the task instruction system variable with just the pre-text that is on it. So the pre and post are often very, very useful to have to append things to a system variable. These are generic, so they work with pretty much all text system variables. Obviously, numbers can include text, but any text system variable, you can use the pre and post modifiers on your system variable to make it work. You can also escape the curly brackets. Now, it is a little ugly. This is the text that I have here. This is how it actually appears whenever it is literaled on the screen. So it's not perfect the way that it works, but you can actually escape the curly brackets. Curly brackets are troublesome sometimes because in Process Director, curly brackets are reserved characters. They always identify a system variable. So anytime the system sees curly brackets, it wants to interpret a system variable to pull back either, your data from the form or your process or whatever it may be. But by hitting the double slash, you can actually escape the curly bracket. What I was trying to get it to do is just show a literal cur date with just so I could actually see what the syntax of the system variable was. It doesn't quite do that. You still see the escape character, so it's not perfect the way that it works. And my memory is that it has never worked perfectly, and it has prompted me to work up a Jira ticket for the engineering team so that I can simply use those two escape characters, that slash slash, to make it work. We may want to change those two characters. Well, they are backward slashes. So maybe we don't need to change them because they are backward slashes. So that is important. It's not forward slashes. So we may try to fix this because what we ideally like to see is just that, just the cur date. However, that aside, you can still escape a system variable just by putting the double backslash in front of your opening and closing braces so that it shows the curly brace as a literal and does not try to show it as a system variable. I don't think in the real world, if you're not an implementer, if you're a regular user, I'm not sure there's any real reason to show you the system variable syntax that you're using other than in some sort of training scenario. However, that aside, the escape function does exist. All right, so now let's take a look at this string here. And I'm just going to put in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. I think that is enough there. And I'm in design view. That's not the form. Working there is not going to help me. We need to work here in the actual form itself. So let's try this again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H I J E F G H I J K L. And we'll tab out of that. And we see several different things here that are showing up. And let's take them one at a time. So, our very first one, and I think I had, well, I let's open up Visual Studio Code because we're going to be looking at a lot of this text and it's probably going to look pretty small on your screen. So let's open up Visual Studio Code and let's make it small enough so that we can see it here on the screen or so that you can see it. I'm going to have it extend off to the side a little bit so I can do my clicky thing back and forth. And let's create a new text file. And we'll just grab these 4 system variables there and we'll paste them there. And that should be a little easier to see. So we're going to be manipulating some text here. And there are a couple of different manipulation methods that you have available to you when dealing with text. The first is to return some value that is part of a longer string. So in this case, actually, we need to have my form up at the same time, don't we? Well, okay, we're going to have to move things around so that I can see 3 different screens at the same time here. So in my form, I've got this text, A, B, C, D, well, A through L. It's the alphabet. So the first thing I am doing is I am trying to find some specific text. And so what I'm saying is, here's what I want you to do. I want you to start. I want you to go through the string in this form field. And I want you to go to character index number 6. And that's the sub start. So I want you to start at character index 6. And I want you to grab 10 characters out of that string. And I don't think I actually have 10 characters that I can grab out of the string. So let me add some more. L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V. That should be enough, right? We'll tab out of there. There we go. That gives me my 10 characters right there. So we're starting at substart 6. So G is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 characters to get to G. What is going on? I asked for the 6th character. Well, this is one of those things in Process Director that is what we call zero-based, meaning the first number in the index is not 1, it is 0. So it's very important to remember that when we're talking about indexes, we are talking usually about a zero-based field. We aren't consistent about this in Process Director. In things that we control, like arrays, we generally make those 1-based arrays. So the index of the very first array row is row 1. That is normal to most people. Most people think of 1 being 1. In programmer world, 1 is not 1. 1 is 0 often. And so things that we don't control, and this is one of those .NET things, this string parsing deal that we're doing. And in most computer languages, whenever you have a collection of objects, any sort of list of objects or an array of objects, on the programming side, they all tend to be zero-based. So you just got to keep in mind that in almost every case, except where it comes to things like arrays, but in most other cases, and by arrays, I mean array controls on a form, so array rows. But in most other cases, programmatic, programmatic features like system variables rely on the underlying programming language and the structure that is provided in that language. In the case of process director, it's C sharp. But it would be the same if you were in PHP. It would be the same if you were working in TypeScript or JavaScript. Um, so, I think both Python and Ruby also zero base lists and arrays. So you just got to keep in mind that our first character is zero. So if I say I want to start at index 6, that will actually be the 7th character in my string. And so thus it starts at G. And then I've got sublength equals 10. And so that gives me just the next 10 characters of the alphabet. Now, the length actually is 1 based. So 0 really means 0, none. 1 means 1. So I'm going to start at character index 6, which, because it's 0 based, will be character 7. And then I just want to pull the next 10 characters. This is useful if you have, it's especially useful if you have specifically formatted entries in your text. And so you know how many characters you would have to go in to find text that is useful to you. So if you have highly formatted entries, this is a great way of just ignoring some of the crud that you kind of put into some formatted text entries, like headers or things like that. You can just elide past those and just start where the data starts. And of course, if it's that highly formatted, you probably have a pretty good idea of the length of text that you need to pull as well. So that can be useful. Another very similar format, well, it's not a similar formatter, but it's an addition to that, is you can actually do conversions to uppercase or to lowercase. So there is a case formatter called case equals upper. And if you throw that into a text system variable, it will actually convert all of the text in the string to upper. So in this case, I happen to be using it in conjunction with my substring search that we had up here at the first. I've just added case equals upper, and now it will just return the same data, but this time it returns it all in uppercase. There is also a case lower, so you can actually convert everything to lowercase as well, although I think probably converting to uppercase is probably the more standard way of doing things. Now I'm going to need to change my text because we're going to do something a little bit different. We have the ability to find a pattern or a set of some sort of substring of text inside my string and actually replace that string with something else, or that substring with something else. So let's change our text here from the alphabet, and let's just put in some extra text, and it'll have to have some text as part of the text in here. So here is some text to read. Her is some text. Here is some text to read. And we can, oh, I've already gotten out of it. So therefore it's already worked. So again, I'm still getting the same features from my my substring search index. It's returning that. But now I've got here is some text to read. And the pattern is some text. So let's do that. Here is some text to read. So important safety tip. It is case sensitive whenever you do the pattern and replace. It is literally looking for the text you put in. So initially I forgot to capitalize the S. And when I did, my system variable here says, here is some text to read. Well, that's exactly what is in the, that's actually what's in the field. I was looking for some text with a capital S, and I did not enter that here. So therefore, it didn't work. But if I change the S in sum to a capital S and then text out of it, my text is unchanged. I haven't made a change to the text, but I have done a string search and replace so that some text has now been converted to other text in my system variable. I can also do that. I'm going to add some extra spaces there on the end. And I added those extra spaces because I don't really want them in my string. And so there is a trim modifier, which will just uh, pull out all of any trailing spaces. Trailing spaces are often a problem whenever you're trying to do text comparisons and things like that. Like if you do an equals comparison, it's not super unusual, although most of you are pretty good at it. But it's not super unusual to somebody say, look, I have this condition. It's looking for this text and it's the same and it's just not working. And then you go and look at the data and, well, it's not the same, often because somebody just inadvertently tossed an extra space or two on the end of the line. And whenever they do their text comparison, well, I've got this extra trailing space and I don't see it. It certainly doesn't show up in the UI if I just open the form. I mean, this all looks fine, but I've got this deadly trailing, well, in this case, three deadly trailing spaces at the end of my text. And because I do, if I was to do any sort of text comparison with some other data that didn't have those trailing spaces, that comparison would fail and I would be a bit flummoxed. So what trim enables us to do is to kill all of those extra spaces and just trim it back to the last real character, period, a letter, a number, a special character, anything but a space. Spaces will die whenever you put the trim modifier on the system variable. And then there's this index here, this number here, which is, it's just returning -1. Now, what does that mean? Well, I am looking for some specific text, and that text is approve. And that text does not exist here. So here is some text to approve. By the way, I did not capitalize approve, so I'm doing well. So this is some text to approve, and I'll put a period on the end of that, and we'll see that now our number has changed to 21. Now, the reason it returned -1 in the first instance was because the word approve or the text approve did not appear in the control. It just wasn't there. And so a return of -1 tells me that the text is not there. And the reason why that tells me the text is not there is that this is the index of modifier, which will return the index, the starting index of the string in which it finds the text approve. So in this case, it is returning the number 21, which means that I have 21 characters before it reaches the A in approve, or before it actually reaches the word approve. I maybe should have made this text box a little bigger. So it's returning the index of where the text approve starts. And so if the text approve does not exist, then it will return the number of -1. If it does exist, as it does now, it will return the index, which in this case is 21. Now, what this means is that you can kind of do things on the fly. So if you want to pull out some specific text or change some specific text, but you don't know where that text might be, because what you want to do is try to figure out how to return some specific text. Well, let's just try that one. The nice thing about system variables is that you can nest them. So technically, I could, if I don't know if the word approve exists in there, so I don't know if there's anything that I want to return. So let's say that if the word approve does exist there, I want to grab the next, let's say, 100 characters. But I don't know if approve exists. So what I can do is look for it by nesting my system variables. So now here's what's going to happen. I'm looking at some form field. Okay, where am I going to start looking? Well, normally I would expect an index number here. I would need to know exactly, as I did up here, the character at which I wanted to start. But I don't know where the character index is because the text I'm looking for may be anywhere in this, in this wall of text. So let's say it's a multi-line text box and there's a lot of text there. Okay, fine. I don't know where the text I want is, but I want to look for it to see if it is there. And so I will look through that field, and if I find the text approve, I'll return the index of it. Now I've got a number, in this case, 21. And so now that I've got that, I know that I meant to get rid of that 6, not to just move it. But okay, now I've got an index, and because I have an index, now I can just say, okay, fine. From that index, I want to grab the next 100 characters. And so that way, the text can be anywhere in that wall of text that's in a multi-line text box. And I don't really care where it is because I can always nest my system variables so that I can find the index of the desired text that I want. And once I know that, I can go ahead and do my substring, or I can return the substring that I want of 100 characters, starting with with whatever index this returns. So you've got the ability to do some mixing and matching to find and return different sorts of data by using these string modifiers that we have. All right, let's go back to our main form. So that's some of the more useful text modifiers. There's probably some other ones, but it's already 10:30 and we've only done text, so we should probably move along with a little briskness here. So those are our string modifiers. Let's now go back to our number modifiers. So how do we want to manipulate numbers? Now, because it's a form field, we can always return the value of the form field. Now, this is specifically a numeric field. Where's my form? There it is. This is strictly a numeric field. You know what I should do? I should make these of a size that enable me to sit them here side by side on the screen. Well, they still need to extend below the bottom of the screen so that I can click on them separately as I click back and forth. So let's add a number here and let's see what we get. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add just a generic number. We're going to have to change this a little bit here. So let's take a look at what we're doing with these four system variables. The first one is a formatter. There are a number of formatters that exist in the system, and depending on the value you put in, you're going to get slightly different numbers. Now, with a 2, I have no decimal place. So this formatter is looking for number, period, or point, number. So it's basically looking for 2 digits, two places, 2 decimal places on a digit. Now, I don't have that. I've just put in a whole number. And so this formatter is not going to work quite the way I wanted it to work. But if I put in this number, it will work the way I want. So this is kind of a flexible formatter. It doesn't specify a particular format on every number. So if I put in an integer or a whole number like 2, like we saw, it's not going to do anything with it. That's the entire number. It's just 2. However, now I've got a number that has 5 decimal places after the decimal. So I don't want to see those last 3 decimal places. I only want to see 2 decimal places. So using this formatter with only 2 decimal places removes the final 3 decimal places. Basically, it only shows me the first 3 decimal places. Now, I'm going to change that 4 to a 6. So it's now 23656 instead of 23456. And I want you to notice what happened. This now changed to 45.24, where it was previously 45.23. And all I did is change the 6 to a 4. If I change it back to a 4, that will change it, the return value, back to 23. So not only is it formatting, but it is not just saying, okay, I don't want to see these last 3 digits. It's actually rounding the second decimal place based on my value in here. So if it is, 556, well, that's closer to 45.24 than 45.23. So therefore, it will just round it to 24 instead of 23. So this is something you do need to watch out for if precision is important to you, because the rounding just takes place automatically. It's there to help you. But what if I didn't want those extra values? Well, unfortunately, it's gonna round automatically for you. So you are not going to get, if it's, 235 and higher, 0.235 and higher, then it's always going to round up. If it's below 5, it's always going to round down. So just something to keep in mind whenever you're using this kind of formatter. And if I make it a larger number, the restriction before the decimal point, so this here, that is really just telling me it's a number. I don't actually even need 2 numbers there. I could get away with that because this is the whole number that is going to show up. If that number is, 5,245, it's going to show me 5,245. It is not going to limit the number of digits I can have to the left of the decimal. It does, however, limit the number of decimal places you can have. So it will limit the numbers that show up to the right of the decimal, and it will just go ahead and enforce that two decimal places formatting on your number. So it's sort of wise to think about it as this can be any number of numbers. but after the decimal point, you're now limiting the formatting. So the limit really matters on the right side of the decimal point, not the left side. Next, there is a calc feature. Now, this is showing me a really, really big number. What it was actually expecting was just a decimal point. So if I have a decimal value and I want to convert it to a percent, well, that's easy enough to do. All I have to do, and in this case, this is a calculation field right here. And all I have to do is write it out like this. It's a calculation field. So it is basically a system variable field. And in fact, all fields in Process Director are system variables. Just because you see a visual representation of a form field in the design view, that's just because we're trying to give you some indication of, kind of what it's going to look like on the form. But that picture that you see, and that's what it is, by the way, it's not really a control. When you are looking in the design view, you're looking at pictures. These aren't real controls. Well, these are kind of real controls, but things like the list box and the date picker, user picker, they're all just pictures. I think even the radio buttons are just, no, they're not. They're kind of quasi controls, but these are placeholders. This is not what Process Director is going to be saving. Every control that you place on a form, all of these controls are all system variables. Every control tag is a system variable. So when we talk about system variables, we're going far beyond just controls. Technically, I don't need to use any of these UI controls at all. Technically, I can just type in the form control tag. In fact, in our documentation, we have an entire topic on all the control tags. And indeed, when it comes to dates, there are some times where for some of the things that you might want to do, you have to use the control tag. Because if you put a date picker on a form and you set it to the type of date time, that will work, but it's only going to give you the time in 1 hour increments starting at midnight. So if I wanted to have a date field on a form and I wanted to increment in 15-minute increments, and I wanted those 15-minute increments to start at 8:30 in the morning and end at 5 p.m., I can't do that with a standard date picker that I would pick from right there, my date picker control. I have to write the control tag. So if we go into the documentation, since we're here, we might as well. Well, we'll go through this slight divergence. So let me go to the doc. And let's go to implementation and Process Director objects, forms, and the online form designer, form controls. Boy, we're getting really down here. We're digging deep into the table of contents. And then there's this topic here, form control tags. And so for the example that we're using, which is our date time, there we go. There is our date time picker control. And there we go. There's my 15-minute intervals starting at 9 a.m. and ending at 5 p.m. Or if you prefer, the way that I would prefer to do it would be 0900 to 1700 hours. And then I would see a control that looks like this image example here. So if I want to do this sort of control, then I literally have to use the date time control system variable control rather than using the UI control. But just so that you know, behind the scenes, you're always using a system variable control. So technically, you could create a form without using any of these at all. If you knew what the control tags were for all the controls that you wanted on your form, you could literally just slap the system variables in the text of the page for each control, and everything would still work. You just wouldn't have any of the visible placeholders, and your form would look a little uglier, but it would certainly work, and it would certainly be fine. So uh, there's a lot of things that go on with system variables, including this is a calculation field. I mean, technically, I could have just dropped a calculation field on the form. I mean, it exists. Um, is it no, it's actually in arrays, I think. No, it is not in arrays. Where is calculate? There it is. There's my calculation control. I could have dropped in a UI control, but in this instance, I simply didn't. I just called it as a calculation control. So that's what we're doing. We're doing a calculation. So we're slowly getting back to this percentage here. Uh, and so because I've got 0.23556, I want to pull a calculation field and I want to do a little math. So I have the formula property for my calc field, and here's my formula. I want to take my number field and I want to multiply it by 100. So basically, I'm going to move this decimal for 23556. I'm going to move that decimal 2 characters to the right. So it turns out to be 23.56 in this case, even though it is 556. Again, we've got the formatter, and again, we've got rounding happening over here. But I'm just going to take this decimal value, multiply it by 100, format it as a 2-digit decimal, and then in literal text, I'm just dropping a percent sign right after my system variable. It is not part of the system variable. It's just plain old text that I'm sticking on the form to give me my percent sign. So when given a decimal value, it is going to give me 23.556. So if I put 1,000 there, it's going to give me a much, much larger percentage of 100,023%. So I'm doing my percentage calculation, which implies, of course, that I am in fact expecting a decimal in this field. But since we're there and I've got all of these extra numbers in there, that extra 1,000, let's take a look at the next system variable, because this one, I'm doing a little different formatter. Now, all of these formatters that I'm using, whether it is the straight up, literal numeric format for each digit, and I can put that in as the formatter, or I can use any of the C# formatters that exist for numbers. So in this case, there is a formatter in C# called E, which returns exponential notation. So if we go down here, we get this value of 1.000236 E plus 003. And of course, if you know exponential notation, that's just telling me that it is 1.00236 to the third power. So to get that actual number, I would just have to move the decimal point 3 places, and that would give me 1,000.24 in this case, or 1,000.236 in the exponential notation case. So you can just convert large numbers automatically to exponential notation, and you can convert them either way. So in this case, it is a minus 001, which means that I would move the decimal point to the left rather than to the right. So you will see whether it is a negative or positive, whether I'm moving my decimal point to the left or over to the right. Whenever you shift it to exponential notation, because as you just saw, that minus sign is now a plus sign, and it is zero because I don't have to move the decimal point at all because it is it's a very small number. But it was a very large number. That's a lot of things. So it's often easier to show this in exponential notation. So this is 2.5 blah, blah, blah to the 11th. So that tells me that I would need to move my decimal point 11 places to the right to get the actual number. I don't use exponential notation much, but if you're doing any sort of scientific stuff or if you're working at a university, which we have a fair number of those as customers, that exponential notation probably actually gets some use of some of our customers. And finally, I probably messed this up because it probably still says digits equal number, and that's bad. So we're going to set this to 4. And that means we're going to have to save this form, and I'm going to have to reload my sample form because number is not what should be there. It should be an actual number, which in this case is 4. So if I take a look, well, we're going to have to refresh our form. So let's refresh it. Great. So now let's go back here and let's type in 2 again. And let's look at this final number, which is 002. So basically, what the digits formatter does is tell me this is how long I want my number to be. I want this to be a 4-digit number always, which means if it is 2, then the number is going to be 0002. Now, if it's a bigger number, it's going to grow. So it will not be a 4-digit number, which means to say it will not truncate my number if it is larger than 4 digits. So from 0 to 999, it's going to show me 4 digits for the number. As soon as I get to a 5-digit number like this, it is going to become a 5-digit number. This is not a limit. This is more of a formatting thing. So if I were to expect, and this is something we could use it, say, with request numbers. So for if I had a sequence number, right, I could set the number of digits on a sequence number to 4, and I would know that my first request number would be 0001. And in the past, I've talked about how I create sequence numbers to make unique request numbers. So, and I combine the year and a 4-digit number for that year because I expect that in any given year, I'm probably going to have less than 10,000 requests. So that gives me a lot of flexibility. So this is very useful for having specifically formatted numbers, like the way that I have it set up, where if it's like an HR request, it'll be like for this year, HR 26-0001. And the way that I do that is with the digits formatter, so that my very first request, that's 12, but that's fine. It's 0012. I was about to say my very first request would show up as 0001 whenever we use the digits formatter. All right, so that is some of the more common numeric things that you might do with system variable parameters. Now let's pull this right here. And I've actually got 2 things I forgot to put an array in. We're going to have to make an array. I didn't put an array in this form. So let's talk about lists and arrays. So we'll start off with our list box. And largely, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and we're going to change the value. I'm just going to select all 3 of these values, which is this, that, and the other. And I would have expected an event to fire there. So I'll fire the event from somewhere else. And let's take a look at what we got here. By default, if I just return the name here for this control just happens to be named list box because I'm, very creative in my form field names for this. So this is the format in which it is going to return this. This is the comma separated list format that it's going to return. Well, that's kind of ugly because it has a this is what a comma separated list looks like. And so it starts off with a comma, and then there's my first value, my second value, and my third value, and then there is a trailing comma. So there are some things that I can do with this. There are several different uh, uh, encoding characters that are available for various types of sysbars. There are, in fact, a lot of encoding characters that are available for those sysbars. In fact, if we go to, and this is, by the way, what we're talking about is uh, taken from this page I'm just about to show you. But if you go to system variables, there's the system variable parameters page. All of these parameters that I'm talking about and many more are listed on this particular page. And in this case, um, I'm using kind of this example here. Um, but it's this that we're really interested in, these encode types. So I am using this asterisk encode type in the system variable that we're now going to be looking at. And what that particular encode type does is it converts it to a valid SQL list of strings. So if I'm doing any sort of database stuff, now it's designed for database stuff, but it also helps things look a little prettier sometimes. If I throw in this data, and in this case, it is string data, it all needs to be encapsulated with a single quote because that's how SQL deals with strings. It throws single quotes around them. So this encoding character encodes things as SQL. Now, this is the only encoding character that we're going to show today, but all of these different in character codings do some other things and they manipulate the text in different ways. And all of them are pretty cool, except for this one. This one is not cool. And if you don't know what you're doing, you better not use it because it turns off HTML encoding, which means, I showed you a little bit earlier how my uh, system variable, well, we can just go back and look at it. Oh, well, we can't look at it here. We'll have to look at it here. Um, let's go back into the source code here. I just did something I know I don't want to do, and I forget where I did it. There. That I did not want done. I clicked on the wrong button. That's never good. So we'll go back to the source code and we'll look at my strong HTML tag, right? Which just shows up as those less than signs and greater than signs on both sides of the text that say running activity. That is HTML encoding. What it's doing is it is saying, okay, I'm going to save this into the system and I need to make it safe. And in order to make it safe, I'm going to strip out those HTML characters, the actual less than sign and greater than sign, and I'm going to replace them with their ASCII text equivalents, which in this case will be the ampersand LT semicolon and GT semicolon. So that makes it safe because it is not sending the plain raw HTML back to the system. You don't want to send unencoded HTML back to your system because it can be a security risk. So generally, we don't do it. However, if we go back and look at the documentation, this here turns off the automatic HTML encoding, which means we are going to send back to the system the HTML that you have placed in there. And when we see that bar, then we're going to know, okay, don't mess with this. Don't convert it to safe text. Send the HTML as is. And as it says right below that, BP Logix does not recommend the use of this encoding option. We certainly don't in production. If you're using this encoding option, it's okay if you're trying to do a specific debugging thing. And that's the only time it's okay. And once you've done your specific debugging thing, you need to turn it off because you do not want. Look, I can probably, if I sat down, think of a use case. Might be a relatively outlandish one. I can probably think of a use case where I would use this encoding somewhere in a production system. Can't imagine what it would be, but I imagine it could. But in most cases, you should never be using this encoding character in a production system. It's useful on the testing side sometimes. That's the only reason it's in there. Anytime you look in the documentation and you see the big, ugly purple box, that's a warning to either ensure that you don't do something or to make darn sure that you do the thing. So this has a ugly purple box that says we don't recommend its use, and we don't. So other than that, all of the encodings are very, very useful, and they encode things a little bit differently. Now, this ampersand that I'm using here just happens to convert it into the SQL type string where it's encapsulating all of the values that are getting returned by this list inside the single quotes. And that's nice. Now we have this one, and that's the system variable right here. So it takes just the raw and throws it into this SQL type. And I would suggest that you use different encoding characters, certainly on your test system. You can just go through these encoding characters and use them. One thing I will say is that if you're running a business value, we are going to want to see that. And our recommendation is that anytime you are doing something that touches SQL, so anytime you run the SQL command custom task, or any of the custom tasks that accept us that go to, so any of the database custom tasks, if you happen to use them, although those have largely been deprecated by the use of business values, the SQL command one hasn't, because that's the only way that you should be running update, insert, and delete commands on your system. But if you're passing a parameter to fill drop downs from database, assuming you're still using that, again, most likely you're going to be using a business variable or business value with a parameter variable in it. For any of those parameters, you do want to use this encoding string. And if you don't, the system is going to warn you. We recommend that even on your development system, as tedious as it might be, our recommendation is that you require the use of this encoding for any SQL parameters that get passed. I certainly practice that on my system. if I were to go in and open a new copy so that I don't get away from where I was, if I can grab the menu there, nope, those are customers. There we go. That's training. So if we go into, and I was just playing with this yesterday, in fact, we go to default partition and documentation and training. And of course, I have, is it in documentation? I've now forgotten where my business value is. So one of the nice things about the new, there it is. One of the nice things about the new content list is the ability to go in and grab data. By the way, this is 6.1.500, freshly installed in Process Director, which means when I go to a business value, I get the nice, pretty Monaco editor, which formats things. It automatically adds fields. So if I click on a field, it just adds it right into my SQL, although my cursor was in the wrong place. So I've added it in the wrong place, but makes writing your SQL a lot easier. But to get back to the parameter and the encoding system variable, right there, I've got the encoding system variable. On my system, I'm not requiring it. I'm not enforcing the SQL safe parameter there. But I use it routinely on everything I do. That is a best practice. So even if your system doesn't require it, you should do it. Now, on my system, if I were to get rid of it and try to update this, I'm going to get a warning that says I'm being a bad boy. I've got system variables without encoding parameters. It will still let me do it, however. As I said, best practice is not to do it so that when I update, I don't get that nasty message. There is a a custom variable that you can set that will not allow you to save a business value or any SQL statement. So any of the database connector custom tasks, it simply won't allow you to save the configuration until you put the encoding character, the SQL encoding character in there. So out of all the encoding characters, this is the one that you're going to use most often. So when I am using a system variable, in this case, the parameter system variable, I have a parameter down here at the bottom. Obviously, it's named ID. I probably should. Case doesn't matter in SQL, but I should. Oh, I should get rid of that capital and put it in lowercase so that it matches the format that I have down here. But I always use the system variable, or I always use that encoding so that this system variable, whatever gets passed, will be SQL safe. There is a type of attack on systems called a SQL injection attack, where instead of sending a parameter, I just actually send raw SQL to pass a SQL command back to the system. And you never want that to happen. So using the encoding character always ensures that these are going, so if I were to put a SQL statement in, it would just be, it would just be considered text, part of the parameter text. And I couldn't just run a SQL command through a SQL injection attack because my parameter is SQL safe. Recommendation is that you enforce that via the custom variable and just require that encoding character to be used anytime anyone has to write a SQL statement for any reason. So that's encoding characters. You can get some weird behaviors out of this. Now, this is not the behavior that I want. I want it to replace that, um, just the what do you call it? A single quote. Apostrophe. That's what you call it. Wow. Boy, did I lose the plot on the alphabet. Uh, so in this case, I'm pulling list box, pattern, replace, and I only wanted to get rid of this right here, but because of the encoding character, it's getting rid of all of my text there. So you can see some, I guess, unwanted artifacts. What I really wanted to get back actually was this, and that is not working. So it appears that I have found something that I did not want to find, because what I expected was to have the ugly uh, leading and trailing commas removed. And then on the second line, when I dropped in the encoding character, I have these single quotes, and I wanted to just get rid of the single quotes, ended up with my unquoted comma separated list. And what I've ended up with is this, which is wrong, but what you should see is this. And it looks like we're going to need a little patch too. And I have no idea how long this has operated like this, because it's been forever since I've tried to do that. And you probably haven't seen it because the use of list boxes is fairly rare, and the use of and trying to format them as I did here is pretty rare. So this is kind of an edge case, but I don't like it. I don't like the fact that that's not what I'm seeing. So we are going to have to get that fixed. So there will be a patch, I'm sure, in the near future that we'll use to address that. But now we got to talk about arrays, and we don't have any arrays on here. And I think some field name is not going to work for me. So we're going to need to go back and going to keep that open, that form, but I am going to need to add an array. So let's drop an array in here. So we'll just do something simple here. Um, I think I'm just looking over my system variables. I think I can get away with a single column array. So it won't be a very impressive array, but it will be an array. So we'll drop in a table, and we'll drop in an array start control. I'm just going to call it array. And we'll just give it a text box, and then we'll end our array. And I guess I will need a second row, because I am going to need an add row to array, and the array name is array. So now I've got an array control. So let me save it. And when it saves, like it just did, we should be able to refresh our form. And look, I've got an array down there. So let's go to our array, and we'll go with cat, dog, horse. Oh, well, none of this is going to work because I didn't change the form field name in my system variables. What is this field? It's called input. Let's call it my array field. My array field. We'll copy that. We'll come down here. It's now my array field, my array field, and my array field. That should work a little better. Let's save that. And as soon as the spinny is done, well, spinny, get done. I will have a sip of coffee while I wait. Okay, that's really taking a long time. So let me refresh my form. Nope, it's still saving. Okay, well, this is pleasant. It's taken forever. Forgiveness. I'm just wasting your time now. I should have put this array on prior to the webinar. I just completely forgot to put the array on. Yeah, it happens. There we go. That looks like a save. Let's refresh my form. And it refreshed. So we're going to do it again. Oops. Cat. Horse. Ours? Horse. No you and horse. There we go. So I've got my array. I've added that row. Um, and we're seeing cat, cat, and then dog, bar, cat, bar, horse. So we'll take a look at what it is that we're actually looking at for our system variable. Arrays, as we mentioned earlier, are one-based objects. So the first row of an array starts at one in a process director form. So in this case, I've got, well, I added 4 rows, but so far my data is dog, cat, horse. I guess I could add another row. Um, Donkey. Um, and I'm going to have to prompt a refresh on the screen just so that everything shows up. And there we go. Now it says cat, cat, dog, cat, horse, donkey. So let's take a look at what we're doing. I am specifying the data I want from an array field. Normally, arrays are returned as comma separated lists. So if I have a field, my array field, and I say I want you to return the value of my array field, by default, it's going to return it as a comma separated list. It's going to look exactly like a list box does. It works exactly the same way. Um, Technically, the list box is an array, or at least the selected items that you select from a list box creates an array. It's a programmatic array. It's zero based, so the first element is zero, and the first element of an array is one. But other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. So if I return my array field, it's going to want to return it to me as a comma separated list. In fact, the only reason that I'm not seeing a comma separated list here is because for these two values, I'm finding the data in a specific array row. And for this value, I'm using the separator modifier to specify that the separator be a bar. Otherwise, it would return it as a comma separated list, and the separator would in fact be a comma. So there are two ways to grab specific items out of array. There is the row num modifier. So when I say I want to return my array field and I want to return row underscore num equals 2, it's going to return me the second row. This is a lot of extra, oops. This is, well, actually, I'm still going to need a character there. So we'll do this. This is a lot of extra writing, and I am too lazy to do that writing. So the simplest way of accomplishing this is just by going :2. We're just going to assume that if you go my array field :2, that you want row number 2 from that array. So I don't have to write all of this stuff. All I really have to do is go my array :2 as shorthand, and it will return the second row in my array, which in this case will be cat. And then the separator, as we talked about earlier. If I throw in the separator modifier, I can choose whatever character I want to use as the separator for the comma separated list that gets returned if I'm just asking for the value of my array field. Since I am not either using row num or I am not specifying a particular row number by shorthand reference, then I just want my array field. Well, my array field is 4 different values as a comma separated list: dog, cat, horse, and donkey. So it's going to return all of those values that are in that array. If you want to change the value in an array, then you have to be able to specify that row number. If you just try to change the value of my array field, Process Director will certainly allow you to do that. And whatever value you pass, it is going to change all of the fields to that value. So if you pass the value shark to this array, then the actual value of this array will be shark, 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 because it's going to take that single value and it's going to replicate it in all of the array fields. So whenever you want to just change a specific row in an array, you have to be able to specify that row. Not only here, but in the UI itself. So if we go back to the form definition and we go to set form data, and I'm just going to pick any event. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to add a set form data action, and I am going to pick form field. And the form field I'm going to pick is my array field. What is going on here? This is all jammed together, my array field. Okay, not liking the way that looks. That's obviously something else I'm going to have to send to the engineering team. Wow, finding stuff on the fly live is not a great feeling on my end, I got to tell you. But this is all just display stuff, tedious but easily fixable. The important thing here is that if I pick that array field, which I just did for my array row, a separate text box is going to show up to enable me to specify what row of the array I want to change. So both in the UI and in system variable, we are going to want to see if you want to change just a specific value in an array, you are going to have to pass it that row number in one of these 2 ways. So just keep that in mind. Interesting, because somebody just asked about sort of doing a change to an array field on the fly. And, you know, they didn't realize apparently that they needed to specify which array row they needed to work with. All right, so let's talk dates. So let's pull these system variables over. And so here are my date fields. I have 2 date fields. I have date 1 and date 2. So let's pick date 1. We'll say the 26th. And let's pick date 2. We'll say the 30th. And I am not seeing my date diff here working. And I'm pretty sure it is on the form date diff field name. Um, diff field, date one, date two. So let's save that again. Although I didn't see an error, so it may not be the field name that is wrong with that, but I am not seeing, I may have other syntax wrong. Um, I may have messed that up. Let me refresh that because I do want that date diff. And I am not getting my date diff. Okay, let me check my syntax for this. So date diff, form control tags, date diff, control name, date one. Oh, oh, I know. I do have a problem. I do have a syntax problem. It'd really be helpful if those were system variables. Date one, date two, so let's save that. Let's refresh my form. Let's pick some days here. There we go. That's much better. Syntax is super important. So let's talk about what we're doing here. In the first one, I'm using the business days formatter. Business days and probably days, because there is one that's just, days, are probably the most useful date time formatters that you can have. And by the way, there are a lot more than that. So again, if we look at the documentation and we go back over here to date time system variables, I can pull months, years, months, days, hours, minutes, seconds, business days, which is what I originally used, business hours, et cetera, et cetera. What this does is it just adds a specified number of years, months, days, hours, etc., to whatever the value is in a particular date time system variable. So this is a date time field. So obviously it is a date field. So therefore I can manipulate it as I just did is by saying, okay, how many business days do I want to add to date one? And so business days don't count weekends by default, and they don't count any of the holidays that you have specified in your custom variables file. None of those are business days. So all weekends and all holidays, they don't count as business days. Every other day, Monday through Friday, that are not holidays do count. And so this says, I want you to give me 10 business days after date one. So I picked date one as 107 2026. And so it is giving me 10 business days beyond that, would take me to 121 2026. The 7th is a Wednesday. So one, two, well, that's not a business day. Three, one of these is not a business day. Three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. Well, maybe one of them is a business day. Oh, I might not have updated. Oh, I didn't update my system with the 2026 holidays. So I'm missing the 19th as a holiday. So the 21st would, in fact, be, uh, was it the 21st? No, I have to be adding a holiday in there. What was my, what was the value that I ended up with? 121. Right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, that's how we get to 10. That gets me to the 21st because I left out a holiday. So great. That allows me to add 10 days. The other thing that I can do, which is kind of cool, if we're using any of these formatters that I have listed here, if I use any of them, I can also subtract days. I just got to throw in a negative sign, and that will remove 10 business days from my selection. Next is my date formatting. So there's a whole bunch of different ways of formatting dates. I have all of the different date formatters are here in the documentation, so you can look at that as well. So in this case, I've just thrown in the date format that, well, it's a date format I've used ever since I spent 10 years on active duty as a military policeman. The date time group, the DTG, year, month, day. So, and I still use it today because, oh, it is so easy to order things by date when you use the DTG to determine what the date is. So the date that I selected in date one was 2026-0107. And so that is my date with that formatting as well. You got a lot of formatting options, and you can use any separators that you want as well. So if you like your slashes, most people do. Some people prefer the regular dash character to be their separator. Doesn't matter. You can use whatever separators you want as part of this. A DTG has no separators. It is just a bunch of numbers to specify a particular date. If you really want a DTG, the way that it used to show up would be HH, capital HH, capitalization, real important on these things because a small m displays minutes, a large M displays months. So it's super important that you get that right. HH, MM. So that would give me both the date and time in 24-hour format as a full date time group. So if any of you are doing any work with the DoD, that may be a date time format that is familiar to you. And then there's the date diff, which now being configured correctly gives me a specific amount of time. So basically what the date diff control does, and it is again, it's one of those form controls, like the date time picker where you want to do special things with times. The date diff control is a form control tag. It does not have a representation in the menu. So there's no UI control for date diff. This is something you have to throw in via a system variable. It is one of the two super common system variables that you need to use for control. Now it does get a name. I called it field name, although I think I changed it here on the form. So it does need a control name, just like any other control. That's a required value for any control tag. And then I just specify, okay, I got two dates. Date one, which again, that's That should be a system variable. And date two, which should be, again, a system variable, and is, in fact, on the form itself now. In fact, I should probably go back to the form here and copy that since it's now valid. So that's the syntax I'm actually using now to specify these two date fields. And then I specify, so what the date diff does is it's going to return me the difference in time. What it's going to return is a type of value called a time span, which I think is actually just the number of seconds between two events. And it may even actually be finer than seconds, what it returns. But it's just a number, like 21,416. And it's going to return that number, which is a time span data type. And so once I have the time span value, which is the difference of the date time value between date one and date two, then I can format that time span as I have here. So I've got that many days, that many hours, and this many minutes. Now, I have thrown these inside square brackets for a reason. So it separates them out, not as plain text, but the stuff inside the square brackets, those are the actual formatters. Everything else is just text. And so I can just throw these texts, plus I have these separators in here. It gets a little confusing. So the square brackets enable me to set off the formatters from the actual literal text that I want to display as part of the result for my time span variable. So it gives me a lot of flexibility when I'm dealing with a time span data type for determining how I want things to appear whenever I return my value. So in this case, what that allows me to say, it's 22 days, 0 hours, and 0 minutes. Now, the reason there are no hours and no minutes between these two dates is because they are not date time pickers. So they're just date pickers, and date pickers by default, the time defaults to midnight, 00 hours. And so as a result, because they're simply date pickers, there are no hours and minutes that will be returned, which fine, that tells me the system is working the way that I would expect it to work. But the difference between these 2 days is 22 calendar days. So whenever you're doing these time span system variables, and it's important to remember, time spans and date times are two different things, and they're two different data types. They operate, pretty similarly, but this is what a time span. This is what a sample time span value would look like. We expect on a time span for you to, hey, I can see when I wrote this. I haven't updated it since 2015. Anyway, because we expect you to use text and a whole bunch of different text, depending on what it is that you want to do with the time span, it's going to be a lot more loosey-goosey. With date times, we got a really good idea of what you want to see for a date time, because there's a pretty limited number of date time formats that you're going to use. But when you go to time span, like I said, it gets all loosey-goosey. I don't know exactly how you're going to express this date diff, this difference in time. And because I don't know that, I have got to use these square brackets to set off the formatters from all of this other extra text that you might be throwing in there. I mean, you could be saying something like, I talked to you about this that many days ago. So I talked to you about this square bracket, D end square bracket days ago. So it allows you to be a lot more free with how you're doing with how you're using those formatters. So that's why time span system variables have those square brackets around them that denote them as time span, that denote them as formatters, whereas there are no square brackets around date time data types because there's a much more limited way of expressing date times. So those are our dates. Let's see, it's 11:35, and we're down to the last bit. And I'm just going to grab this and paste it over here. And we will go back over here to our form. And, I should probably pull this up here so that we can see all this. So I have two controls here to upload some documents. Now, each of these controls are in different groups. I don't know why I have to be so anal retentive about ensuring things are lined up. So let's look at these two groups. So I have a group called final submissions, and that is the attach control and then the show attach control for final submissions. On the second set of controls, the group is final edits. Now, these are all process attachments, so I'm going to have to submit my form and make the process work. But first, I need to upload some documents. So over here, I'm going to go into desktop doc. That's what I want. And let's see what we got. We got grievance procedures, loss of mobile devices, and public affairs policy. So we'll open that up. We'll hit OK. And there we go. I've uploaded those documents. Cool. And over here, we'll browse back over to Docs and use of VPN connections, securing mobile devices, and office safety. There we go. We'll upload those three documents. Okay, so I've got 6 showing up here at the very bottom of my form, showing up for a very good reason, because my system variable tells them to. Now, I have 6 attachments to this particular process now that I have submitted it. So if I had just put in timeline attachment num, then it would return 6 as well. I can also search for group names that have something in common. So in this case, I have final and then a percentage sign, which is a wildcard. So basically, my group name should start off with final and then include something else. If I had 3 groups, and one didn't start off with final, I wouldn't see the results. I'd still see these 6. But I can see that you may not believe me, so I'll prove it to you. We'll go back to my form, and we'll change this final. We'll throw in an extra wild card. So we'll throw in a wild card in the front. So now we're looking for any bunch of characters. The term miss, and then any bunch of characters after it. So basically that percentage sign means all the things, all the characters. So basically we're looking for miss here. And these wildcards are important, and they're an important time saver, as I will explain as soon as this thing finishes loading. There we go. And I want to go ahead and refresh my form. Uh-oh. Now my number here has gone from 6 to 3. So 2 things have happened. First of all, it is now only returning the number of attachments that are in final submissions, because only final submissions has the term miss in it. And so I am searching for miss anywhere. Now, let me tell you why that's cool. Because when we did our text thing, so let's go back up and do our text thing. Well, let's just look at it here. We've got all of these things here to try to find out where a substring is, right? So some form field, substart 6, sublength 10, and you would have to try to evaluate if that returned miss or not. These are useful, but it would be super inconvenient to have to try to build a system variable case to pull back some specific text, to search and find some specific text or substring. So these wildcards here make my life a lot easier. So if I do that and use, percent miss percent, what that is telling the system is, I want you to look for those 4 characters, and I want you to return, and basically it's going to return true if it finds a group name that contains this set of characters. Now, remember, this is group name, and there are a lot of system variables that return group names. And group names get returned as a text value. So basically, we can do this in sort of any time we need to look through text by, in this case, group name, but it kind of works anywhere. I've got these wildcards that enable me to do a search for that term somewhere in the timeline group name. So it's going to look through all of the timeline attachments. It's going to find any group name that contains miss in this case, and it's just going to say, okay, well, this one counts. I'm going to increment my number of timeline attachments by 1 because I found one that matches it. And ultimately, with the 6 that I have entered here, with 6 being in final submissions and 6 being in final edits, or 3 in each, only 3 are going to match my search term using these wildcards. So the wildcards are kind of cool. And so if I'm doing text searches, especially through things like group names and what have you, it's really easy to use these wildcards to be able to return the data that I want to see whenever I pull it back. Without this modifier, timeline attachment number, of course, would return just a plain old 6 because there are 6 attachments for this process timeline. Well, that's all I've got for you. I did go longer than I thought I would go. It did take us almost a full 2 hours to complete this. And this is a brief trip through all of the things that I can do with modifiers. So I urge you to look through the documentation on the system variable parameters and use modifiers that exist. Modifiers and formatters may make your life a little bit easier whenever you're trying to do some various data things on your form. System variables are a fairly powerful part of the system. Have a great week. We will look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, so long.